Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi today completed his New Delhi visit. On Friday, he met first the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, and then he held a 3-hour-long bilateral talks with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. The key takeaway of the meeting was the statement of Jaishankar that he said no relationship with China is not normal. That was in the backdrop of 2-year-long military standoff on the eastern line of actual control in the Ladakh region. Mr. Aneja, how do you see the statement of Jaishankar? That's quite upfront and very straightforward, that relationship is not normal.
I think so, because, India has made it very clear that any attempt at normalizing India-China relations is based on one precondition. That is, restoring the status quo ante at the border as it existed on April 2020. Which essentially means that the Chinese have to first disengage from the border, go back to the positions which they had occupied before April 2020. This is in eastern Ladakh. And only then, once this has been accomplished, then the normalization of India-China relations can take place. The two are linked, and you cannot decouple normal economic and political relations from the situation on the border. Now, that has been India's consistent position. Today, when the Chinese foreign minister is here, we have made it very clear that we are inclined for a good, normal relationship. This happened during dialogue both with Mr. Jaishankar and with NSA Doval. But please disengage from the border. And once you do that, then relationship will take its natural course. I'm not surprised at all. And I think this was necessary. And now the ball is in China's court. Whether they go ahead and disengage or start the process of disengagement or continue with status quo, in that case, I don't think India-China relationship is going to move forward.
In the meeting with the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, it has been reported in the media that in very plain words, it has been told to the Chinese Foreign Minister that the border standoff must immediately be resolved, which has been stuck for quite a long time. If we look back, the context of this visit is apparently the BRICS summit which China is going to host later this year and wants India to take part in this summit. In 2017 also the Doklam standoff was there. That was resolved before the BRICS summit. Do you think that this outreach on the part of China is because of the BRICS summits that they are holding later this year?
Definitely BRICS summit. And as you said, and I was in China at that time, when the Xiamen summit took place after the Doklam crisis was resolved. And a similar pattern could follow because it is a matter of prestige for China, which is going to host the BRICS summit again, to have all the members of the emerging economies of the BRICS to be present in Beijing. And it's going to be a big embarrassment if Prime Minister Modi is not there and the seat of India is vacant and he attends to it only virtually. So that's number one. But I don't think that's the only reason. I think there's another reason why Foreign Minister Wang Yi has come and why I'm I'm somewhat optimistic that situation on the border might change, and that is because of the situation in Ukraine. Now, because of the situation in Ukraine, the world has got polarized. China and Russia seem to be on one side broadly, and it is very important for both Russia and China to have India on their side or at least continue its position of neutrality. I think that world balance of power changes the way India behaves. And I think that's a very important additional factor, the broader geopolitical scenario, apart from the pull of the BRICS summit, which has motivated this visit, and why I think there is some ground of optimism that because of these conditions, the Chinese may agree to ending the standoff or at least taking steps in that direction. And I think it's also very relevant that the Chinese are told this, which both NSA Doval and EM Jaishankar have said, that please de-escalate the border. I think one very interesting thing is that India today spoke with one voice, both at the NSA level and in fact complemented each other extremely well, so that there is no ambiguity in the messaging which goes to the Chinese.
He went to Pakistan first. In fact, he has been on 3 nations tour. He has gone to Kathmandu also tonight. In Pakistan, he made a remark which didn't go well in New Delhi, that when he said, Kashmir, we have heard again the calls of many of our Islamic friends and China share the same hope. That statement by the Chinese foreign minister on the eve of his New Delhi visit was definitely not in good spirit.
Yeah, but I think so when you are on Pakistani soil and if Pakistan arranges your meeting with the OIC, I think that the Pakistanis will bargain with the Chinese to say something on Kashmir. To be honest, I think from our side, the response has been absolutely correct that for us, whatever be the circumstances, you cannot internationalize Kashmir. Just as we don't internationalize at world forums the Tibet issue or the Xinjiang issue or the Taiwan issue, I think it is expected from the Chinese to respect and to reciprocate the gestures which India makes. And I think that point was made by the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson the day before Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit. Yet I do not see that statement is so damaging as to not look at the big picture and see the possibility of a rapprochement between India and China, which are totally in a different league. We are the emerging economies and rising powers to be caught up with what happens in Pakistan. So I think India has taken a very mature decision to engage with it. And if the end result is the resolution of the border, and not the entire border, but disengagement in Eastern Ladakh, the revival of India-China relations on completely equal terms, and revival of the economic relationship, trade and commerce, I think this move today may turn out to be a turning point.
Another statement by Jaishankar, in fact, he had been very forthright in his media statements today. He said that India wants China to have independent relations with China should have independent relations with India. There should be no external interference in the bilateral relationship. In fact, previously also Jaishankar has said that India would want China to have relationships based on three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity and mutual interests. How do you look at Jaishankar's statement in this context?
A few decades ago, the US used to do this. They would hyphenate the India-Pakistan relationship, which would have meant that if there is a US leader coming to India, I would also go to Pakistan. I think we objected very strongly to it that both are independent relationships and we cannot be clubbed with Pakistan. I think we are making the same statement to China that don't link us up with Pakistan because we are in a different league. We are the rising and emerging powers and we have an independent relationship of that. And Jaishankar has actually put a doctrine to that, the 3 points which you mentioned, that this has to be the guiding principles of India-China relationship. And I think that is another very major point and takeaway from this visit, that we are independent and whatever be your relationship with Pakistan or X, Y, Z, India-China relationship have a standing of their own and you cannot look at this relationship through the prism of Pakistan. So I think that message, again, apart from the border, is an important message which EAM Jaishankar has made very bluntly and plainly. But I can tell you with my stay in China, the Chinese in the end respect frankness, they respect strength, they respect people who walk the talk, as India has done in the case of Eastern Ladakh. We had from day one that we will normalize our relationship only once the status quo ante is restored. And till this day, from the time when Prime Minister Modi went to Ladakh and made his speech, to today when MSA Doval met State Councillors and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, that consistency and that steadfastness and fortitude is something which the Chinese respect. And I think in the end, it is good to be straight off and be frank with the Chinese with the goodwill of finally, turning this relationship around into a relationship of the Asian century. But it can be done only if the Chinese change their behavior. So the ball is now in China's court. If it is smart, it would do what is required to be done for much larger interests, not only between India and China, but for the region as well, for the entire Eurasian region particularly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Atul Aneja. Thank you.
Thank you.